Alright guys, so today we got 2009 Acura TSX up on the stand here. I'm going to be attempting to do the rear struts by myself. Just for a quick picture of the struts here, this is what the struts look like, if you can see them. So that's kind of what the rear strut looks like. I got the ones that are pre-loaded already because I didn't have a spring compressor. I didn't want to mess around with that. I went with McPherson struts. I got them at Auto Value, I think, for around $400 for two of them. So I'm going to attempt to put those on to this car, and I will be giving updates as I go. Alright, so I got the wheel off. And this is the back passenger side, so I'll be replacing this piece right here, if you can see all the way up into there. And my next job is to go inside the back seat, I believe, and take some of this apart so I can get at those bolts. Alright, so obviously to lower the back seat, you've got to pull on these release levers, and then when you go inside here, it took me a long time to figure this out. You lift these two little flaps when that seat folds down, and you'll see two bolts, one on each side. Those bolts come off, then this whole seat slides up and out, and then with those gone, you'll be able to access some bolts on the bottom half. And once those bolts are out, then there's a bolt that attaches this bolster to the car, and the bolt for that is actually back behind this bottom seat. So you have to pretty much take all of the seats out to get these side bolsters out, which in turn will allow me to get to where that coilover is on this Acura TSX. Alright, I just want to do a quick video here, or just to show you where the bolt for the bottom of the seat is. It's kind of hiding under this piece of plasticky thing. So you just lift it up, pull that bolt out, and then I believe it's just friction clips. So once that bolt is out, you're able to just pull the seat bottom straight up, and you should be able to remove that seat bottom. Just one quick note on these bottom seats. Underneath there are, so obviously there's a bolt right in the middle of the seats, and it holds this whole bottom seat against the back like that. But there's a clip under the seat, kind of in the middle of each outer cushion. Be very careful with it. I broke mine. And they're a special clip. If you look under there, or you feel with your fingers, you're gonna feel, it's gonna feel like there's like a little, I wonder if I could, can't get my, here, just give me a sec, I'm gonna get my flash working here. Okay, so I got my flash on. Excuse the dirtiness here, I'm gonna clean it after this. So if you look under here, pull up the seat, kind of. So right here, there's a little clip. You can see that? And this thing, it's hard to show you. That pulls, see how that works? So just be very careful that you don't break it when you're pulling it out, because that little loop has to clip in there, like that. But if you pull up on it, it will break. So just be very careful and just pull that little release towards the front of the car when you're taking that bottom seat off. I hope that helps. Alright, so I had some major issues getting this right strut off. I ended up having to cut it, which is ridiculous, and you can scream at me if you like, but I could not get it past this hole in the A-arm for nothing. I've heard some guys say take the trailing arms off, and I loosened them up and realized that I didn't think it was gonna, it wasn't gonna drop low enough, and I could be wrong on that. But anyways, I made a big mess. I'm gonna clean up this oil, and I'm gonna do the other side properly. Yeah, it's gonna be great. So I got the new strut in place. Yeah, it goes all the way up there and it sits in. It's a little bit tricky. What I ended up doing is I ended up putting a bar back there, and I ended up pushing down on this A-arm. That way I was able to slip this in that way first, and then the top part swung in like that. And it really works better with two people. If you have a helper to push down that pry bar while you carefully slide that up in there. That sort of worked for me. Took a little bit of jiggling and messing around. And then obviously, I didn't think I showed you this before, but the bolts are actually, it's dark in there. The bolts are right in this little compartment. They're on each side like that. And I'm finding it really difficult to get my hands in there, but I didn't feel like taking that whole big back piece off, so I'm just working through that little hole for now. To get that little clip off, here it is right here. There's plastic tabs that, there you can see those. Plastic tabs that you just get a flat screwdriver out under and just gently kind of pry that up. So anyways, I got that side in. I'm gonna get all the bolts tightened up, and then I'll be working on the other side. Alrighty, so this is the other side. This is the driver's side. Now the lighting in here is terrible because of the sun position right now, but what I did on this side is, so as you can see, the strut is sitting at an angle. It's pointing, the top of it here is pointing towards the front of the vehicle. So the way to get this thing out, so I did this backwards on the other side, and I figured out my error here. What you have to do is when you release the bottom of it, it bolts right into that hole there. When you release, what you have to do is you have to make sure you're putting downward pressure on the disc here, or on the A-arm, so that there's enough room for this whole system to fall out of the holes that's bolted in up at the top. So once it falls out of there, then you can take a pry bar of sorts, and you can pry up, but make sure when you do, now lots of guys say you have to take this off. I didn't take it off and I'm fine, but make sure that when you pop this thing off, see how the A-arm kind of angles that way? It's sort of like, it angles that way. It's built that way specifically for this A-arm, or for this strut, sorry. So that when you pop that knuckle off of there, it can point that way, and then because it points that way, it gives it more room to lift up in the back, and then you're able to actually pull it out, which I was not able to do on the other side. So just keep that in mind. When you take this off, the bottom goes that way, towards the center rear of the car, if you will. And once you have that free and clear back there, yeah, like I said, there is a brake line there, so you just want to be careful you don't sever that. So just be gentle and take your time with it. But that's the way I did it, and that's the way that it worked out the best for me. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to do this with one hand. It's been a little bit difficult. But here's the strut, and how you're going to want to insert it is just make sure that that is on the right side. Just make sure, because once it's in, it's awfully hard to take off again and turn around. So make sure that's pointing the right way, and then what you do is you slide this in to the back all the way, and with any luck it clears just like that one just did. So it's very easy. If you just get the right angle for this strut, it slides in very easily, and then you're able to just kind of lift it up into place, like so. I will show more as I go. So this is where the struts bolt from inside. I know I showed this to you earlier, but one note, I would recommend doing these first. When you're tightening up the struts, again, just leave the bottom loose and do the top, because it's so dark. Because it's going to be a lot easier to find the holes up there when that's loose enough, so you can kind of wiggle it around and turn it a little bit. Because this one I had a little bit of trouble just lining the holes up, and I actually had to get a little bit of a thin little crowbar and just had to rotate that just very gently and slightly, just so I could find the hole. So you don't want to tighten that one up until you got the top one all tightened up. All right, so I have the wheels on again. I still got the car up on the jacks, but it's kind of hard to see. I'm gonna take it for a drive, and I will bring it back and I'll do a quick debrief before I end this video. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I just took my car off for a little bit of a rip here. It actually drives way better. It's not even close. Before there was lots of swaying back and forth when you would, even when just going around corners, it felt really sketchy. Braking, it would feel weird, and it shook, and it didn't feel very safe. Anyways, it actually made a huge difference. I'm just gonna re-torque up my wheels here now, make sure they're torqued up, and then I'm done. Gotta put the back seat in, and then I'm done. Thanks for watching. I'll post more. Bye.